They say the greatest tragedy is not death. The greatest tragedy is to be alive and never truly live. To walk this earth with your head bowed low, not in reverence, but in resignation. To possess within you the raw spark of a god and yet cower like a ghost, haunted by your own untapped power. Most people fail, not because they lack strength, not because they lack opportunity, intelligence, or talent. They fail for one reason. They fear their own greatness. They fear what they could become if they truly committed. If they dared to break free from the chains of comfort, conformity, and cowardice. If they stopped living for approval and started living for purpose. You were not born to be tame. You were not forged in the furnace of life just to settle for mediocrity. You are not here to blend in. You are here to become something that's never existed before. Yourself, fully realized, unapologetically alive. But the path to that place is brutal, because before you rise, you must face the abyss. Not the abyss out there, but the one inside you, the dark mirror of your potential, where your dreams wrestle with your doubts, where your destiny is hidden beneath your fear. Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." But most people, they run from the chaos, they numb it, ignore it. They drown it in distraction, in dopamine, in the comfortable lie that says, "This is good enough." Good enough? For who? For the scared child inside you that learned to play small? For the world that profits from your insecurity? For the false friends who cheer your mediocrity but grow quiet when you rise? No. Good enough is the enemy. It is the soft pillow that smothers greatness. And make no mistake, there is something great inside you. Something ancient, divine, and unstoppable. But it will not reveal itself while you hide behind excuses. Look around you. History was never shaped by the reasonable, the balanced, the always liked. It was shaped by the obsessed, the unreasonable, the madmen and madwomen who refused to sit quietly in the corner of life. Think of Edison, locked in a lab for nights that bled into months. Think of Lincoln, scarred by loss, mocked by critics, still rising through the ashes of failure. Think of Carnegie, Ford, Disney, men who built empires not because it was easy, but because it was necessary for who they were becoming. Do you think they were fearless? No, but they moved anyway. They acted not in the absence of fear, but in defiance of it, because they understood a truth most never grasp. Your fear is not the signal to stop. It is the compass pointing you toward transformation. You fear your greatness because it demands your death. Not your physical death, but the death of who you were. The lazy you, the victim you, the addicted, distracted, self-doubting you. And death is painful. But you must decide. Do you want to remain a caterpillar clinging to the safety of the leaf, or will you surrender to the cocoon, die to who you've been, and be reborn as who you truly are? This is not poetry. This is war, a war for your soul. And the battlefield is your mind, because everything begins there. The world you see is not the world as it is the world as you are, a reflection, a mirror. Twist the lens, and the entire picture changes. You must burn the false beliefs that keep you caged. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not just average. You are a living force of nature, wielding consciousness, choice, and willpower, but only if you claim it. If you do not program your mind, society will. They will flood it with mediocrity, with passivity, with fear. They will teach you to compare, to consume, to compete, never to create. But you were born to create, not just art or ideas, but a life, your life, one sculpted from the raw marble of your suffering, carved by the chisel of your discipline, and brought to life through the fire of your vision. So what do you see? Close your eyes and ask yourself, if I were not afraid, what would I build? Who would I become? You see, clarity is not a gift, it is a discipline. Most people are not confused, they are terrified. Because once you become clear, you no longer have an excuse to stay the same, and that is the beginning of power. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But most walk this world without a why. They chase goals that are not theirs. They live lives scripted by others, and so they suffer, not the suffering that purifies, but the suffering that paralyzes. But you have the chance to choose differently, to listen not to the noise of the world, but to the whisper in your soul, the one that says you were meant for more. And yes, your purpose will demand pain. It will demand sacrifice. But the pain of purpose is sacred. It sharpens you. It awakens you. It reveals who you really are. You don't need motivation. You need conviction. The kind that says, I was not born to watch life from the sidelines. I was born to fight for what matters, to build what does not yet exist, to become someone I can be proud of. Conviction is not loud, it's quiet. It's the voice that speaks at 4 a.m. when no one's watching, saying, get up, there's work to do. It's the force that keeps going after the applause stops. After the failure hits, after the dream feels distant, that's what separates the great from the forgotten. So ask yourself now honestly, have I been betraying myself to fit in? Have I shrunk to make others comfortable? Have I traded destiny for distraction? Because every moment you delay your evolution, you serve the very mediocrity that's killing you. This life, this brief flame between two eternities, is not a dress rehearsal. You will not be here forever. But the mark you leave, the legacy you carve, that can echo across generations. Not because you were perfect, but because you were authentic. Because you chose the narrow path, the brutal path, the real path. And on that path, you will lose comfort. You will lose followers. You may even lose who you thought you were. But what you will gain is everything. The world will not hand you your greatness. It will resist it. It will test it. It will tempt you to give up the moment your rise begins to threaten the status quo, because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your fire threatens their sleep. And that's why most people stay small. Not because the mountain is too high, but because they're afraid of what they must leave behind to climb it. They fear losing their circle. They fear the silence at the top. They fear becoming a target, standing alone, naked in their truth. But what they don't see is that solitude is sacred, that silence is the soil in which greatness grows, that the pain of elevation is far more noble than the comfort of staying the same. You want to become more? You must become less of who you were. You must let the old identity die, the one addicted to validation, the one afraid of failure, the one who flinches every time things get hard. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Greatness is not convenient. It's not instant. It doesn't arrive wrapped in ease and applause. It's earned, brick by brick, scar by scar. You will be misunderstood. You will be mocked. You will be told to stop dreaming so big, to play it safe, to be realistic. But tell me, was it realistic for Mandela to dream of a free nation while locked in a cell? Was it realistic for a half-deaf composer named Beethoven to write symphonies that would echo for centuries? Was it realistic for a poor immigrant named Andrew Carnegie to build the steel empire that changed the world? No, it wasn't realistic. It was inevitable, because they decided it would be. They made a vow, not to comfort, not to applause, but to their purpose, and they pursued it with relentless, blinding devotion. Not for what they could get, but for who they could become. This is the shift most never make. They chase results. You must chase identity. Don't ask, what can I achieve? Ask, who must I become? Because the level of your life will never exceed the level of your character. And character is forged, not found. It is built in the moments no one sees. In the early mornings, the late nights, the battles with your own weakness, the voice that says quit, and the stronger voice that whispers not yet. You are not just here to win, you are here to transform. To take the raw material of your life, the failures, the shame, the wounds, the doubts, and alchemize it into power, into presence, into purpose. But you must decide, are you willing to go through the fire? To be broken open, so that the real you can emerge? Because make no mistake, there is a price for greatness, and most are not willing to pay it. They want the crown without the crucifixion. They want the reward without the ritual. But life doesn't work like that. The universe demands a trade, and the currency is your comfort. You will not rise until you stop worshiping ease. You will not evolve until you stop negotiating with your pain. You will not awaken until you look your suffering in the eye and say, show me what I need to learn. Because every obstacle is not a wall. It is a mirror showing you where you're still weak, still attached, still afraid. And when you stop running from that mirror, when you dare to look deeply, with honesty, with humility, you will find a strange thing happening. The fear begins to fade. The excuses dissolve. The path begins to appear. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And that is the secret. Your life will rise when you rise. Not externally, internally. Discipline is not about rules. It's about love, self-love. The highest form of love, because it says, I believe in who I can become, and I will suffer for that version of me. Most people have dreams, but they lack rituals. They have ambition, but no architecture. You want to rise? Then make your days sacred. Start your mornings with intention. Train your mind like a warrior. Starve your distractions. Feed your focus. And build your life not by default, but by design. And above all, do not wait. Do not wait for the right time, the perfect plan, the validation from others, because while you wait, life moves on. While you hesitate, your destiny begins to dim. And if you wait too long, you will look back and realize you were always one decision away. The decision to rise, the decision to commit, the decision to finally believe, not in some distant outcome, but in yourself. As you are, wounded, uncertain, imperfect, but willing, because willingness is everything. Willing to fall, willing to fail, willing to be seen starting from nothing, willing to suffer ridicule, because your purpose burns brighter than your pride. This is what separates the few from the many. This is why most people fail. They fear that kind of exposure. They fear that kind of transformation. They say, what if I try and I lose? But the deeper question is, what if you don't try and you never live? Because a man can survive failure. He can rise after defeat. He can rebuild after collapse. But what he cannot escape is regret. The silent erosion of the soul that comes not from falling short, but from never daring at all. And so they drift, not because they are lost, but because they never chose a direction, never chose themselves. They adopted the voices of others, the fears of others, the limitations of others, and mistook them for truth. But hear this clearly. If you do not define who you are, the world will do it for you. And the world is far too invested in your weakness to ever show you your true strength. That is why you must go inward, not for comfort but for clarity, not to escape the world, but to return to it awakened. Clarity is power, and power without purpose is poison. So what do you believe in? What will you stand for, fight for, bleed for, even when no one claps? Because until you define that, you will be pulled in every direction, a slave to opinion, a puppet of trends, chasing noise while your soul starves for meaning. Purpose is not found in convenience. It's found in the struggle, in the tension between who you are and who you must become. It is the fire that burns away the false layers, leaving only truth. And truth is not always beautiful. It is often brutal. It demands that you confront your addictions, your lies, your self-deceptions. It demands that you look in the mirror and say, I've been playing small. And it ends now. Because there is a wildness in you, a roar buried beneath decades of silence, a thunder beneath the calm. But most are terrified of that sound. They have built entire lives around avoiding it. Careers, relationships, routines, all engineered to stay safe, all designed to survive, not thrive. And then they wonder why they feel numb, why they feel unseen, why they lie awake at night with that ache in their chest, that quiet, persistent voice that whispers, this isn't it. No, this isn't it. Not yet, because you haven't gone all in. You've dipped a toe into your potential, but the ocean of your becoming remains untouched. You must dive in. You must drown the old self. You must become possessed by the future that calls you, not someday, not when you feel ready. Now. This is the hour. This is the moment where you draw a line in the sand and say, I refuse to die with my greatness still inside me. This is the vow, the sacred promise, the contract between your present pain and your future self. And here's the truth you must remember. Every step toward your purpose will require a step away from your comfort. And that is why most people fail. They fear becoming powerful because they fear becoming responsible. Because power comes with consequences. It means no more hiding, no more blaming, no more deferring your potential to luck, to fate, to childhood wounds, or societal labels. When you embrace your greatness, you take the throne, but you also take the burden to rise when others fall, the burden to speak when silence is easier, the burden to live, fully, consciously, courageously, when the whole world is half asleep. But in that burden is freedom, because nothing is more liberating than knowing that you are the author, not your past, not your trauma, not your failures. You are the voice that rewrites the narrative. You are the force that bends reality through sheer will. You are the storm that reshapes the landscape of your life. And if you choose to rise, truly rise, then you must abandon the shallow waters of consensus. You must sail alone for a time. But what you will discover is a life that is yours in fire, yours in faith, yours in form and substance and sacrifice. You will look around one day and realize you built this, not from privilege, not from perfection, but from decision, the decision to stop running from your greatness and start rising toward it. Because the world does not need more followers. It does not need more consumers. It does not need more obedient shadows echoing someone else's voice. It needs you, your truth, your madness, your fire, your soul, lit up and unleashed. And if you still doubt that, if you still hesitate, then look not at the world. Look within. Ask, am I betraying my calling just to be accepted? Am I shrinking my voice just to be liked? Am I burying my light just to fit in the dark? And if the answer is yes, then rise. Rise now. Not for applause, not for validation, but because something inside you knows. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a life no longer driven by fear, but fueled by destiny. Destiny is not a lottery ticket. It is not handed down from the clouds. It is summoned by those bold enough to answer the call and ruthless enough to silence everything that isn't aligned with it. Because to live by destiny is to kill the version of you that was built by fear, the version that clings to the familiar, that bargains with mediocrity, that worships acceptance more than it worships truth, and that death is painful. Because it means leaving behind the stories that kept you safe, the excuses that wrapped you in comfort, the identity that got you here, but cannot take you further. You are not failing because you lack talent. You are failing because you fear transformation. Because deep down you know, once you become who you were meant to be, there is no going back. You cannot unsee your power. You cannot unknow your worth. You cannot pretend you're small again just to make others comfortable. And that's what most people can't handle. They don't fear the climb. They fear the consequences of reaching the summit. They fear the silence of solitude. They fear the expectations that follow achievement. They fear the weight of standing tall. When the wind of the world tries to bend them back down, so they choose shadows, they choose roles they've outgrown. They dim the light, just enough to avoid the pain of expansion. But what they don't understand is that hiding costs more than failing, that denying your destiny is the most violent betrayal you can commit against yourself, because you weren't born to coast. You weren't born to mimic. You weren't born to merely exist while the fire inside you slowly turns to ash. You were born to create, to carve, to climb, to build a life that makes the gods lean forward and say, there, that one remembers what they are. But to live at that level, you must go beyond motivation. You must tap into something far deeper, a ferocity, a resolve, a holy rage that says, I will not die with my music still inside me, because there is music in you, there is architecture, there is empire. There are blueprints the world has never seen, but they will never be built by the part of you that fears being seen. You must make a choice. Stay hidden and safe, or rise and bleed, because the road to your purpose is paved in sacrifice, not always of comfort, but of identity. You must sacrifice who you think you are for who you know you're meant to be. And that shift, that shedding of the skin, that's where the terror lives. But it's also where your power waits. Power does not come from books. It comes from embodiment, from becoming the very thing you speak of, from living in alignment so ruthlessly that every step forward becomes a declaration. I am no longer available for a life that betrays my potential. And when you start walking that path, the right people appear, the right opportunities unfold, not because of magic, but because you're finally visible to the life that matches your frequency. The real reason most people never rise is because they're living beneath their vibration. Their habits are dull, their thoughts are infected, their environments are graveyards, and then they wonder why they feel like ghosts. You want to rise? Clean your temple, clean your mind, clean your soul of the agreements you made in your weakest hour, the ones that said, "I'm not enough, I'm too late, I'll never change." Lies, all of them, born in moments of pain, but they are not your truth. Your truth is fire, your truth is motion, your truth is becoming. But becoming demands a breaking. It demands you shed your shame, release your guilt, forgive the past, and finally step forward like someone who remembers why they were born. Because you were not born to fear your own greatness. You were born to wield it. Not recklessly, but righteously. Because the world is burning in mediocrity, starving for voices that speak with conviction, desperate for souls who have been through the fire and returned with wisdom. That can be you. But only if you stop asking for permission to be powerful. Only if you stop waiting for signs to begin. Only if you stop diluting your purpose so others won't feel insecure. You're not here to walk quietly through life like your presence is an apology. You are here to roar, to break generational patterns, to disrupt dead systems, to awaken something sacred in yourself, and in doing so, awaken others. But it all begins with one decision, to stop fearing the greatness that lives inside you and start honoring it. No more shrinking, no more stalling, no more rehearsing your rise. Rise now, as you are, with what you have. Start moving like someone who finally understands that fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal, a compass, a threshold. And beyond that threshold is your true life. Not the life you were told to want, not the life you settled for, but the life that has been waiting since the beginning of time for you to wake up. And this awakening, it is not a one-time event. It is a practice, a war you wage each morning against the inertia of the old self. A decision you make, breath by breath, to choose expansion over contraction, to choose creation over stagnation, to choose destiny over distraction. Because the truth is, the world will always offer you an easier path, one of comfort, of compliance, of numbing distractions and shallow rewards. They will sell you a dream already lived by 1,000 other souls, scripted, safe, sedated. But you were not made for that. Not if you're still listening. Not if your blood still burns when you hear words like purpose, freedom, becoming. No, you were made for the edge, for the raw silence between doubt and decision. For the sacred battlefield where identity is forged not by what you think, but by what you do. Because thought alone is not transformation. It is discipline that becomes destiny. Action that becomes alchemy. And most people, they fail because they wait for clarity before they commit. They wait for certainty before they leap. But greatness does not wait. It demands that you leap before you're ready, that you move before the fear fades, that you take the step while your knees still shake, because that's the only way the path appears. You build the bridge as you walk it. You forge the sword as you wield it. You become the person worthy of the dream by walking the road that terrifies you. So if you're still afraid, good. Stay afraid. Let that fear sharpen you. Let it remind you that you are standing at the edge of something sacred. Not death, but rebirth. Because the moment you cross that line, you'll feel it. The pull of the future, the cracking of the shell, the tearing of every illusion that ever kept you tame. And it won't be easy. No transformation ever is. You will lose people. You will lose parts of yourself. You will bury old dreams to make room for real ones. But in that grief, there is glory. Because only those willing to die to who they were can give birth to who they are. Look at every titan of history. Carnegie, Lincoln, Edison, Mandela. They weren't born unstoppable. They decided to be. They faced the same demons. The same poverty, doubt, ridicule, rejection. But they made one sacred vow. I will not waste this life trying to be less than I am. That vow is what separates the great from the average. Not IQ, not luck, not timing. But the inner contract that says, no matter how long it takes, I rise. So rise, without waiting for applause, without needing consensus, without negotiating with your excuses one more damn day. Your purpose is not polite. It will not wait patiently in the corner, while you entertain distractions. It will scream, it will ache, it will keep you up at night until you finally answer. And when you do, everything changes. You start walking differently, speaking differently, thinking differently. Because you are no longer a wanderer. You are a weapon, forged in fire, directed by purpose, unshakable, undeniable, unstoppable. That is the version of you the world is dying to see. The one who no longer asks, "What if I fail?" but instead declares, "What if I don't? What if you succeed? What if you break every chain? What if you step fully into your power and become the kind of person who makes the world bend? Not through arrogance, but through alignment. Not through dominance, but through conviction. Because when you live aligned with your purpose, you don't need to force anything. You become the magnet. You become the signal. You become the storm. And the world, whether it is ready or not, must respond. So ask yourself now, are you truly afraid of failure? Or are you afraid of becoming the person you know you were born to be? Because once you step into that power, you'll never be able to unsee your potential. You'll never be able to return to the small talk, the small dreams, the small life. You'll be ruined. Ruined for mediocrity, ruined for normal, ruined for anything less than greatness. And that is beautiful, because that means you're ready, ready to burn the ships, ready to silence the inner coward, ready to stare into the abyss of who you could be and say, I choose to become that. Not by wishing, not by waiting, but by building, brick by brick, with blood, sweat, and unbreakable will. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not after the next failure, not when you feel like it, now. Because you're not just running out of time, you're running out of chances. So make the decision, right now, to stop fearing your greatness and to start living like it's already yours. Because it is, it always was, and it always will be, if you're bold enough to claim it. But remember this truth. You don't get to keep both, your greatness and your excuses. One must die for the other to live. You can't cling to your limitations and rise into your purpose at the same time. You must decide which identity you will serve, the one built by fear or the one built by fire. Because this world, it does not reward potential. It rewards execution. It rewards the man or woman willing to become the storm, not the one who talks about the weather. You weren't meant to tiptoe through life afraid to offend, afraid to fail, afraid to shine too brightly in a room full of shadows. You were meant to set the damn room on fire. And if that means being misunderstood, good. If that means walking alone, better. Because the road to greatness is not paved with validation. It is paved with isolation. Think of every visionary who ever lived. Jobs, Ford, Disney, Da Vinci. They weren't surrounded by applause when they began. They were surrounded by doubt, by mockery, by the deafening silence of those who could not see what they saw. But they kept going. Because purpose is not a group project. It's a covenant between you and the deeper part of you that knows why you're here. You don't need more followers. You need more courage. You need more focus. You need more discipline to show up, especially when no one's watching. Because that's where destiny is shaped. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. When it's just you. And the voice inside that whispers, keep going. You were born for more than this. That voice is your compass. Follow it. And yes, the world will call you crazy, too intense, too obsessed, too committed. But let them talk, because the moment they stop doubting you is the moment you've already won. Let them misunderstand your fire. Let them mislabel your ambition, because that's what they do when they can't understand someone building something they've never seen. You are not here to be understood. You are here to become undeniable, to become the kind of force that makes the world adjust itself around your vision, not the other way around. But that only happens when you stop flinching, when you stop apologizing for your hunger, when you stop editing your light so others don't have to confront their own darkness. Because let's be clear, you will trigger people. You will make them uncomfortable. You will remind them of everything they gave up on, and that is not your burden to carry. You didn't come here to make people feel safe. You came here to lead, to break chains, to flip tables, to disrupt the sleepwalkers and make them remember that they, too, once had a dream. That's what greatness does. It doesn't beg for acceptance. It demands attention. It pulls people forward by the sheer force of its presence. And if that means walking through fire, so be it. You were born with flame in your blood. You are not fragile. You are forged. The setbacks were your anvil. The failures were your forge. The loneliness was your sharpening. Now you are ready, not to chase your destiny, but to embody it. To become the walking, breathing, living proof that greatness is not a gift, it's a decision. So make it, fully, finely, fiercely. And never again ask, what if I'm not enough? You are more than enough. You are chosen, not by chance, but by the pain you've endured, by the fire you've survived, by the hunger that will not die. That hunger is sacred. Protect it, feed it. Let it roar so loudly that the world has no choice but to make room for your rise. And when it does, when the gates open, when the winds shift, when the universe rearranges itself to match the magnitude of your mission, do not be surprised. This was never luck. This was alignment. This was law. This was you, finally becoming what you were always meant to be. So now, at the end of all your doubts, all your waiting, all the silent battles fought in dark corners of your soul, there is only one question left. Will you rise? Not half-hearted, not with one foot in your comfort and one in your calling, not as a weekend warrior of self-help books and motivational quotes. No. Will you truly rise? Will you let go of who you were told to be and become who you were born to be? Will you stop shrinking your spirit to fit into rooms that were never built for your kind of fire? Will you stop negotiating with mediocrity as if it's offering you something you can't already create for yourself? You don't need permission. You don't need a guarantee. You don't need anyone to believe in you before you believe in yourself. All you need is a decision, a line in the sand, a breaking of the old, a moment so real, so absolute, that the universe itself feels your shift. Because when you truly decide, you collapse time. You ignite motion. You bend the laws of reality around a soul that refuses to go quietly. Most people fail because they fear their own greatness. Because greatness requires war. A war against apathy, comfort, delay, doubt. It is not convenient. It is not safe. It is not easy. But it is worth it. Because the greatest tragedy is not dying. It is reaching the end of your life and realizing you never even began. That you never wrote the book, never spoke the truth, never took the leap, never walked through the door that only you could open. That is what's at stake. Not likes, not followers, not trends, your soul, your legacy, your becoming. So now, hear this, no more waiting, no more someday, no more quiet desperation behind polite smiles and dead routines. Today is the day you declare, I will no longer fear the greatness within me. You will wake with fire. You will move with intention. You will walk like a storm wrapped in flesh, knowing that every breath is a chance to build, to lead, to become. You will stop flinching at your own power. You will stop lowering your voice in rooms that cannot hold your truth. You will stop pretending that you are not ready, when the only thing you've ever truly been is ready. Ready to speak, ready to rise, ready to rewrite every line of your life that told you to stay small. And when the world tries to pull you back, as it will, you will smile. Not with arrogance, but with the quiet fire of someone who has already buried their excuses and risen from their own ashes. Because you are no longer afraid. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer hiding. You are the storm. You are the spark. You are the sentence that destiny has been trying to finish since the day you were born. So finish it. Burn the scripts that never belonged to you. Shatter the limits you inherited from the broken. Rip the chains from your identity and walk as if the ground itself was waiting for you to arrive. Because it was. This world needs your greatness, your rawness, your vision, your unfiltered, unedited, unafraid truth. But it will never receive it until you stop fearing what you are capable of and start living like it is already done. So go. Stand up. Look in the mirror. Not for who you are, but for who you must become. And promise them, you will not fail. Not because you're perfect, not because it will be easy, but because you made the sacred vow that most people will never have the courage to make. I will not betray my destiny, not for comfort, not for acceptance, not for anything less than everything. You are not here to survive. You are here to awaken, to build, to dominate the day with purpose so deep it makes doubt impossible. So walk forward now, with fire in your lungs and steel in your spine. And know this truth: you were never afraid of failure. You were afraid of who you could become if you finally stopped running from your power and started living like you were born to win. Now go show the world who you are.